Thank you all for coming, and thanks to Sarah for organizing this. And this is so beautiful to see faces at the end of summer, early autumn, and in this amazing spot, and to know you're all interested in poetry and to read with my darling. I'm honored to read also in the presence of grandchildren, and I'm going to dedicate this reading to the Magoon grandchildren. And Finn Magoon asked me to read poems about animals, so I'm made sure to include most of the poems. I think have animals in them, so and to dedicate it to you all as well who are reading and writing poetry. So thank you so much for coming. I thought I'd start with a poem from the book Practical Water. I finished a tetralogy on the elements, earth, air, water, fire. And this is from the water book. I have a practice of hypnotherapy. I do a hypnotherapy practice, and it's influenced my poetry a lot. And I encounter certain figures, metaphorically, of course. I'm not like George Bush that literalizes these figures. So I don't get, the idea that they're telling me to do things in the world that I can't go back and dialogue with them. So this has an anarchist in it. In the trance, a pretty anarchist said to me, "It's not that a great love happens. What happened became your great love." Her echo had an ancient glow, and so proved buoyant for my little craft. I left the world and felt a world. The bee loading its gloves with powder, the albatross wanting one thing from the sea. "Nothing can wreck our boat," said she. And when the water felt the glacier, the future held a present tense. A present held a future without cease. And I worked with the element of fire in this last book, starting with a moment that happened when Bob and I were driving down the West Coast, and it was exactly this time of year, so I thought I'd read some poems into this sort of autumn moment. And we were looking at a field of pumpkins, and I had an experience of thinking that the pumpkins were full of these white eyes that were having a completely different experience from myself. And so this book kind of bloomed out of that. The Saint Veronica is also mentioned in this. I had just seen a show on images of Saint Veronica's veil. She supposedly put her veil against Christ's face, and it left an imprint. To spirits of fire after harvest. Between earth and its noun, I felt a fire. "What does it mean by I, Mrs.? It means," and I quote, "one of the vowels in the brain and some of the U's. We were interested in the type of thing humans can't know, interested in kinds of think animals think. A rabbit or a skink, you Mrs. Skiltonianus, when autumn brings a grammar, wasps circle the dry stalks, and you can totally see through amber ankles dangling in dazzle under our Lord the Son of Literature. Between noon and its noun, there were ridged and golden runes on pumpkins, bluish gourds in the fields, their white eyes lined up inside. Wait a sec. Please don't nail the door shut. The air is friendly and non-existent as Veronica's veil. Earth, don't torment your fool, your ambassador clown. Bring the X of oxygen and sex, a fox running sideways through present noon. So Bob and I did I'm going to I'm trying to mix in a sort of very political poems with more sort of spiritual and eco-nature poems tonight, because we're about to head into another full-fledged war, and I'm very angry about it. We did an anti-drone action. We went down to Creech Air Force Base, which is in the Nevada desert, and we held up signs and we read poems as they entered the Air Force Base, and it accomplished exactly nothing. But we do those things in high desert under the drones, and this is called a haibun because it's a block of prose but with little lines of verse in it. We are Western creatures. We can stand for hours in the sun. We read poetry near an Air Force base. Is poetry pointless? Maybe its points are moving as in a fire. The enlisted men can't hear. Practice drones fly overhead to photograph our signs. They look like hornets, Vespula, with dangly legs, dipping in rose circles with life grains. They photograph shadows of the hills where coyotes' eyes have stars. They could make clouds of white writing, cilia, knitting, soul weaving, spine without nerves, dentures of the West, volcano, experiments, geometry, weather, breath, and salt. Young airmen entering the base stare from their Hondas. They are lucky to have a job in an economy like this. The letters of this poem are also lucky to have a job, for they are insects and addicts and thieves. Volcanic basalt recalls its rock star father. Creosote and sage, stubby, taupe leaves greet the rain. We hold our signs up. We're all doing our jobs. Trucks bring concrete for the landing strip. They've just begun. A cliff stands out in winter. Twin ravens drop fire from its eyes. My inner life is not so inner and maintains the vascular system of a desert plant. I'm grateful to Samuel Beckett and to my high school boyfriend, whose drunk father yelled when we closed the door and read the unnameable during the Tet offensive. They prepared me for this. Outside the base, we see borax mines in the distance, the colors of flesh, brown, black, peach, pink, bronze. We stand there as the young airmen settle into their routines. The Gnostics noted it is difficult to travel between the spheres. You've had to memorize the secret names, and the unnameable haunts every aspect of your routine. The names grow heavier as you carry them between the spheres. I went through a period of reading a lot of Gnostic texts from the Nag Hammadi library, and the term seventh heaven comes from Gnosticism, where there were actual spheres that you had to go through by reciting names as you went higher and higher toward the unnameable God. When you are in the desert, when they're flying the drones from there, the actual drones aren't there. They're just practice drones, and they came down very close and were right close to our head, and we held up our signs so that they could read, but there's a big airplane and there's nobody inside. It's very, very eerie, very odd. So this is especially for Finn, because it's got animal sounds. We were talking today, or we were almost talking about translation, and I think it's good to translate animal sounds. So this is based on a poem by John Clare, the Romantic poet, and it's called Two Summer Obads, after John Clare. It was written after the BP oil spill. Tohi Pipillochrysalis wakes a human. Peep, peep, see, peep, see, peep, see, peep, chip, chip, chip. Peep, peep, beep, 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 see, beep, see, beep, see, beep, see, beep, cheep, cheep, cheep. A woman tosses, gulf, disaster, stir, sister, aster, aster, asp, asp, peep, 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 see, peep, see, peep, 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 beep, 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 scream. We didn't need to move so fast. Woman in red sweater to hummingbird. We, no, I'm not sweet, not sweetie. I'm not something to eat. That poem, I was telling Bob, a friend of ours that we just met in China, a Chinese experimental poet, is translating that poem into Chinese. So there's nothing impossible in poetry. And he sent me the Chinese characters. I was just kind of amazed that he was doing that. So let's see. I think I will read a poem that is actually, I'm going to read this for Sarah. It's from Death Tractates. We were talking about this book today. It's a book that I wrote after the death of a friend. Visiting Creature. You think about a poem too much. Like Spanish moss, it starts killing the tree. Look, Berkeley Spring, a mockingbird has chosen you. Try to follow his new short songs, Bree, Bree, Cheat, Cheat, and the one that sounds like, maybe I will and maybe I won't do any such thing. Each time the gray feathers on the throat part, it looks like another mouth, as though the song came from that. But your friend has been gone such a short time you can't keep her voice in you yet. Who is noticing her now? What is this to her? So many shifts in that bird's style, yet what a pleasure to watch him getting drunk on juniper berries, resting lightly on his wing bars. Pretty soon the borders won't bother you either. Pretty soon your loved one will speak forward into this world. So this is a poem. I hadn't given up on the Democrats yet, and I was going to Congress like every 4 or 5 times a year to just lobby them and harass them. After we invaded Iraq, I'd just take my folders and I'd get on a plane and I'd go. I didn't miss classes. I always told I'm not missing classes. I rescheduled a couple classes though. But this was an actual incident in a Senate Armed Services hearing, which is the title. In a Senate Armed Services hearing, from my position as a woman, I could see the back of the general's head, the prickly, intimate hairs behind his ears, the visible rimless justice raining down from the eagle on the national seal, the eagle's claw-held pack of arrows and its friends. A fly was making its for sure maybe algebra cloud in the Senate chamber. It fell to us to see how senators reshuffled papers, the pity of the staples, to sense when someone coughed after the about-to-be Czar General said, I don't foresee a long roll for our troops. There was a rose vibration in the rug. From its position on the table, the fly could then foresee the soon-to-be smashed goddess, as in Babylon. More perception began to be. Filaments rose from the carpet as the general spoke. The senators were stuck. What were they thinking sitting there as dutiful as lunch patrols in junior high? From my position as the fly, I could foresee, as letters issued from their mouths like, General, I'd be interested to know. Some of the letters regretted that. Fibers in the carpets crouched. From the floor arose the sense the goddess Ishtar had come down to bring her astral light with a day-wrinkled plan. From my position as a thought, I thought she might. She might come in to rain her tears on Senator Bai and Senator Clinton, on Senator Warner in his papa tie and Senator Levin, on Senator Reed and Senator Hill, rain tears into their water glasses. Ishtar from Babylon, they had not met before they smashed her country, now or never. Then someone, Clinton I think it was, but it might have been By, asked whether this confirmation will give breathing space for the new general to unoccupy. How do the dead breathe, Senator, from my position as a fly? And I forget who asked what isn't even in the same syntax of this language I'm trying to make no progress in, asked how the Army would unoccupy, by north or south. A voice beside my insect ear said, these senators all have their lives, kids with stuff to do, folks with cancer, some secret shame in a quotidian, the thing in front, always producing panic, just like yours, the voice went, just like your life. I tried to think if this was true, but was too weak from flying above this notebook to pity them. From my position as a molecule, I could foresee 12 Senate water glasses. Each bubble had an azure rim. The ovals on the senators' heads were just like them. The breath they used when saying A for American interests made the A stand still. It had a sunset clause. They tried to say safety, but the S withdrew. The S went underground. Would not be redeployed. Refused to spell. Till all the letters stopped in astral light, in dark love for their human ones. So I'm going to read a poem for my friend Doug, who's in the astronomy department here. And he's thanked in the last 3 books, I think, because he's always giving me really interesting astronomical stuff, which I then immediately put in poems. And this is a moment in West Marin where we spend a lot of time during the Perseid showers. West Marin night during the Perseid showers. And this has kind of an idea about God in it. The sugars drop down in the berries, no longer specific. That mangy deer sleeps the summer off. You've been here the night away, a body with its bit of local pain. Under the hazel, spots on sadder angle wings, spaced unevenly, spikenard bundles poof up from huge stalks. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus. Friday self-dislike is replaced by an earlier mild energy. Fiery rocks hurl themselves through heavenly dust. Why are E and R reversed in fiery while F stays on first? You've been up the night away, a silhouette of claws in the dust, making you sneeze, vast a thought, vast a sky, waiting for morning fog. Pour down light strands of the difficult. The moon will not rise with its golden axe of being. If the fog is too thick, the meteors are online. The first void is God waiting. That continues, of course. Then a couple of pings. It sounds like the back of the universe is getting acupuncture. A spinning is entered by needles of gloved rain. There's a website called Space Weather Radio where you can just go and hear the meteors. And if you really just want to have I'm not a Buddhist at all, by the way. I don't know if they can tell, but I can't let go of anything. But the way of sort of thinking about the universe as if it's going to just take care of it and it's going to be there. You can get on this space radio. If you just turn the space radio on, it just goes ping, ping, ping. You just sit there and listen for hours. It's sort of... so I'm going to read 3 more poems, I think. Maybe 4 if they're... Yeah, maybe 4. Khalid Matawa, a really great poet in your midst, and I have been in touch with a friend, Ashur Etwebi, who's a really amazing Libyan poet. And he recently had a terrible occurrence that his house was occupied and destroyed. And this, I'm going to read this for him and also for Khalid and for the Libyan poets that we know. Imperishable longing to be with others, at the rushing forth in streets of squares where you've been with pewter imports, star-shaped shrines, shops, ships stalled in the harbor, where they danced who had been jailed, the tyrant shouting to his thugs, firing on his own from the wall. In this hour, with your coffee, specks of cinnamon, scarves hung from architraves, women crossing ridged water of this chaos, advanced hope, advanced grief, stones from towers, near burning sand. Once we were with you, not to intervene. In that range of action you danced, who had been jailed. Now ache at the rushing forth, the poet's soul, curved fire, lip of sun, where you crouched under arches. How is it now for you to ask the question? And I'm going to read two poems from that I wrote in relation. My mom was born in Brazil, and she always had two languages in her body, in her mind. And she gave up one of them to come to the States. And when she married my dad, she kind of put that other language. I spent some time in Brazil in the 50s as a tiny child. So this is my book, from my book, Loose Sugar. Red fingernails. Briefly, I dwelt upon my mother's tongue. They put up a swing set in the lobby where we liked to hang red fingernails. The polish had been an intoxicant. Rubber trees spoke with red lips. Talking with the spirits then didn't seem all that necessary. President Kubitschek is doing his best to welcome the post-colonial companies. My mother rejoins her first language so she can live, and in making numbers, I develop a love of the partially hollow. The other mother tried to give us her body, painting our fingernails in the kitchen. It was like growing sunsets. During this time, we rarely spoke English. We understood because of what they didn't say. What happened is not how we should measure things. Joy exists because there are delays, those intervals in bodies where two languages mix before the first one has to be lifted away. We didn't get to talk too much about translating today, but my mom just turned 90, and we were just in Tucson visiting with them, and she still has her Portuguese, and she and I are translating a Brazilian poet, Ana Cristina Cesar, together, and so she transliterates and I put it into poetry. But she is incredible, and I was asking her about her experience when she was little. So I wrote her a poem when she turned 89, and then she translated the poem. So I'll just read the first sentence of the poem in Portuguese, and then I'll read you the poem in English, and then one more poem after that. A palavra saudades não é fácil de traduzir. A nossa mãe e eu traduzimos poesia brasileira, e quando chegamos à palavra saudades, hesitamos. So the word saudades is practically impossible to translate because it just means longing, but it means longing when you're right here. So longing for what you already have when you're there. The word saudades cannot be easily translated. Our mother and I translate Brazilian poetry, and when we come to the word saudades, we hesitate. Sometimes we say longing or homesickness or just saudades. Estou com saudades seems to be a condition you can have in the very presence of the longed-for object, an emotion that is also a philosophical condition that grants layers of time to come into alignment with impossible attainment. Proust, of course, knew it exactly. Our mother tells a story of going back to Brazil in the 1940s after she is engaged to be married to our father. In my mind, she stands on the deck of a ship with several languages in her brain, holding notebooks. As the sea knows time, her words know air. Her imagination is full, and she's not a bit lonely, just as a word is not lonely. She looks into the great black waves. When I ask her about specifics of her childhood in Brazil, she notes, "On the day of my birth, there was a small revolution, so we fled into the countryside." This ability to collapse realities into manageable units. What did the streets of Porto Alegre look like? They were stone, big granite pieces, horizontal on one side. She looks over the edge of the ship. She has a precise interior world. She has a body like a poem, fragile but strong, orderly and unknowable, very capable. Soon she will see her mother. There is no one like her. There has never been. There is no one like another person. The invisible stands for everything, including the visible. Even God can visit. The war slaps the side of the ship. It is over. There now. Let's begin our life, com saudades, looking for what is here. And I'm going to read one more poem to you and dedicate it to you all with your love of poetry. And please keep poetry in your life. And, even though it doesn't seem all that practical sometimes, but it is very practical. It's very practical discipline because you can carry these. They're very small. You can put them in your purse or your bag or anything. They go with a lot of other things. So, poetry. And I can't wait to hear Bobby read. After a very long, difficult day, you talk to your loved ones at night. It is a kind of modernism. Color sees into you, thinks a warm path, a tint of meaning brought from how you feel. Then you are double, the owl calls out, Taito Alba in your sleep, scrip, skrrr, heart-shaped face emitting loose nouns. Under its turf, the smart mouse turns, the fierce dead merge with the recently born, where earlier they emptied what you seek. How will you be known? Some registered complaints. You pass them in the hallway, their new haircuts. The bosses are known by new wars. What salmon are left hurry upstream, cold swaths in the bay. Linnets by rose fire at the edges. Linnet or finch? The word edge has wings made of E. The moon rests in a mantle of minutes, its boundaries in back of the trees. Boundaries are known by their nothings. You will be known by your dreams. Thank you.